My dad was a consultant, and businesses would call him when something was broken and they could not figure out why. So he'd go in, dig around, and find the actual problem and fix it. And I grew up watching that. I watched people be genuinely relieved because somebody finally sat down and untangled the thing that had been literally eating them alive. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't know what it was called yet, but that was the job that I wanted. So I got into financial services. I just thought, hey, my dad does business. I want to do business. Finance is business. And I found myself working for one of the big firms, a household name. And listen, I want to be careful here because there are good people at those firms. But honestly, the model is kind of a middleman model. Money comes in, you park it, and everybody gets more or less the same plan. If anything, it's investment management. It's not actual planning. And look, for a lot of people, that's fine. If you're 40 and you're accumulating, park the money is most of the job. But listen, I plan on doing this for 30 years, and I have to compete with AI at that same job. Now you've got E-Trade, stick it in a few ETFs, and it does exactly what someone's charging 1% to do. You've got to be able to do more than investment management. At least that's the world that we're waking up to and coming into. So fast forward, I watched my parents retire. And all of a sudden, the questions got harder. When do you take Social Security? Which account do you pull from first? What happens if the market drops in year 2? How much can we actually spend without running this thing dry? Those are planning questions. Those aren't investment management questions. Like, you want a big number in the account, but what does that big number do for your lifestyle? I tell people all the time, I have a client that's got more money than anybody I've ever met, but still freaks out when her electricity bill goes up by $20, right? Like, what does that money do for your life? It's not about having money or having a big number in the account. It's having a plan to be able to spend it and to feel comfortable spending it, right? Like, ultimately, how many days a year can you afford to do what you love to do, knowing that you can afford to do it? So when my parents retired, we went to the firm I was at, the firm I had worked for, and they could not help them. Not wouldn't, they couldn't. It wasn't what the machine was built to do. And honestly, that was the inflection moment for me. Because if the place I worked couldn't help the two people that I cared about the most, what exactly was I doing there? I used to come home to my wife all the time and say, I don't think I can do this for the rest of my life. I have to feel like I'm adding value to people, just like growing up watching my dad do that for others. So I went looking. I found a firm that was doing it the way I thought it should be done. Tax people, estate people, and custom portfolio management all under one roof. And all actually talking to each other. Not 3 different professionals who've never met sending your money in 1 of 3 different directions, one cohesive plan, right? No limbo. And that's what I do now. And I do it almost entirely for retirees and people within a few years of retirement or even after retirement. But that's where the questions get hard. That's where it really matters. And that's where nobody is getting real help, in my honest opinion. So that's the whole story. If any of that sounds like your situation, there's a link below to get on my calendar. If not, stick around. The rest of the channel is an actual how-to do yourself.